All right, so another very interesting week in the markets. The big news out of this week, I think, was Bitcoin. Bitcoin, at the time of me making this, the night before releasing, it's about just over 104,000 US, about 146 Canadian, within striking distance of an all-time high. First things first, if you get value out of the video, please like, subscribe, comment. Check out those links below. I very much appreciate all the support. So getting right into it here, like I said, Bitcoin within striking distance of an all-time high, and a lot of people are kind of getting bummed out on Bitcoin. And something that I've seen some people point out is that we're within striking distance of an all-time high, and it's not really being talked about a lot, even amongst a lot of the Bitcoin bulls. Like, it's kind of just people are just shrugging their shoulders, and that is good news. Anecdotally, I've told the story before that I first got into Bitcoin late in 2020, and I remember, I don't know if it was late 2021 or early 2022, probably 5 or 6 people asked about it or brought it up, in passing conversation. And the reason that's relevant, I think, is because that was pretty much the all-time high, at least at the time, and now haven't heard about it from literally anyone. I've not heard about it from not one person. And there's actually more people that know me that know that I have it. Now, again, I don't have that much. I'm not like I'm going to get rich anytime soon. I think eventually, yeah, but it's going to have to go up quite a bit before I'm quote unquote rich. So that's not really the point, though. The point is very few people are talking about it. And usually you see market highs when it's those people that have never heard, that never talked about it ever, that start getting into it, right? I remember a couple of people that were buying NVIDIA stock last summer and last fall. And these are people that have never invested in their life. They literally just got into it, and they're all over NVIDIA stock. And, funny enough, that marked the high. So that's kind of the point here, is that we have not seen any of that stuff. Like, again, I follow a lot of people too, and their sentiment is pretty much the same thing. So another very important thing that I wanted to point out is, if you go back to September, I think it was the second week of September that Bitcoin bottomed. It was right around, it was the mid to high 50s in US dollars, and going over the next few months or so, I think it was like mid-December was that all-time high, right around 108, 109,000. So we were up about 100% in about 3 months. And what people don't seem to realize is we could easily go up 100%, by the end of the summer, or even by the mid-summer. And would that surprise anyone? Like, if we're at 200,000 US in August or September, I don't think that's remotely surprising to anyone. And again, like, one of the podcasts I listen to, the main guy that runs it is notoriously anti-Bitcoin, and even he recently is like, yeah, I think 1 or 2% in Bitcoin is reasonable. And I mean, every single time Bitcoin goes down, he's kind of got the whole "I told you so" mentality, and when it goes up, it's just more liquidity, whatever excuse, right? So if we're starting to convert the most, the most skeptical, obviously that's good news. And the other thing here too, MicroStrategy or Strategy bought more Bitcoin, only 1,895 Bitcoin for them. That's not a lot, but for everyone else, that is. Cooler bought more. Metaplanet bought more. Like, everybody is buying Bitcoin. Like, everybody is buying. And the one surprising thing is, why is the price not higher? And I think there's reasons for it. Honestly, it's mostly speculation, to be honest. So I don't think that it's worth speculating, but I think that it's only a matter of time until we see another period where we are up 100% in a matter of 3-4 months. Like, within the next year, even 6 months, I think that's likely to happen. The next thing here, Strive Asset Management is now a Bitcoin treasury company. They're going public through a SPAC with ASST. So we now have a asset manager that is a Bitcoin treasury company. I mean, we have BlackRock, obviously, that is, they have the ETFs, but they're not a actual treasury company yet. And again, this is just notice the pattern here, right? And again, like I've said time and time again, intelligent people, the thing that really makes them intelligent, and I'm talking about street smarts. I'm not, general intelligence. I'm not talking about you're an engineer or you're a surgeon or you're something along those lines. I'm talking about people that are just smart in general. The main thing that separates them is simply the ability to recognize patterns. And when it comes to Bitcoin, I think Bitcoin is the most obvious pattern probably in the history of finance. That there's just this slow trickle that, the institutions, the, very rich people, like et cetera, they're just slowly getting into it. And it's an obvious pattern, and it's something that people really should recognize. This here is from Mark Moss, largest asset manager in the world. I own Bitcoin. Founder of the largest hedge fund. I own Bitcoin. Founder of the best performing public company. Buy Bitcoin. Your family friend. Bitcoin's a Ponzi scheme. So again, notice the pattern here. Everybody's getting, not everybody, but the trend is obvious. There's this slow trickle of the asset managers, of rich people, of hedge funds, like you name it. They're slowly getting into it. And the big difference between Bitcoin and every other asset is, real estate, they can always build more real estate. They can always issue more stock. They can always mine more gold, but the supply of Bitcoin, not only is it capped, there's going to be, and this is the thing that people don't tell you too, is that they'll say, oh yeah, it's capped, and that's the end of that. But there's going to be a point in time, and it's probably within our lifetimes, at least for someone like me, if you're in your 20s or 30s, you will live to see the day to where the amount of Bitcoin, it's going to be going down, right? Because people will lose Bitcoin, and that's going to mean that the supply is going to go down. So not only is it a fixed asset, it's an asset that is even better than that. So that's another very important thing to point out. And again, the trend is obvious here. Getting into stocks, from Daniel Pronk, Trump seems to be back to caring about the stock market. Trump said, this is from May 8th, you better go out and buy stocks now. The market actually rallied after this, but then it did sell off on Friday. As far as stocks go this week, the overall markets were actually down a little bit, but the value side of the market was up slightly. Small caps are up slightly. Mid caps are up slightly. The S&P, I think, was down about 40, 50 basis points. The NASDAQ was down, I think, about 30. So, again, it was a modestly down week, but I think the market's, it's pretty obvious at this point that the market's probably not going to test the highs until we know that there's going to be no recession, because I think that's still something that's concerning. Is it going to happen or not? Nobody knows, but it definitely is still a concern. And again, we're not necessarily completely out of the trade war news. Like, that's something that could still come back. It's not like Trump is like, yeah, we're done. Obviously, yeah, he's saying you're good to buy stocks again, but he's not necessarily saying, yeah, we're done. We don't have to worry about it anymore. So that's definitely still a concern. My prediction near term, it's going to be choppy. It's going to be choppy unless we see clearly, weaker economic news. I don't see us breaking low significantly further. And unless we see clearly better news, I don't see us breaking up significantly. So I think we're going to chop over the next kind of few months or so. And then the market's going to be like, hey, are we seeing a recession or not? I think that's what I think that's going to happen. So getting into earnings from this past week, we still had a decent amount of earnings from this past week. Palantir was probably the most notable. They beat earnings and revenue, and I believe they were up on the news. Let's check it out and see here. Actually, they were down slightly. Then they actually sold off quite significantly after releasing earnings, about 15%, but they did recover. They closed the week down about 5.5%. Palantir, way too expensive. They are a really good company, but they're just way too expensive. Like, alarmingly expensive. Like, they would probably have to come down 80% before I would be interested. The next one is Realty Income. Beat earnings, just barely actually beat their expectations. This is one that I don't know if I ever would buy, but they're very popular in the REIT space. They also pay monthly, so that's why I think they're so popular. AMD, probably another big one from this past week. They actually released pretty good earnings, and they were up quite significantly on that news. So I still think they're way too expensive, and I think you have to be careful in the chip space. I think the best names in the semiconductor space are going to do really good, but you also have to be really careful because a lot of these names are overvalued. Arista Networks, this is one that I've been waiting to buy for probably a couple years now, and they just never have gotten cheap enough. They did beat earnings and revenue, however, they did lower their guidance, and they actually were down quite a bit on that news. And if we look at their valuation, I still think they're way too expensive, but they probably did come down a little bit here. Actually, they're actually below their historical valuations. But I mean, a PE of 35, almost 36, a price to free cash flow almost 29, price of sales of 14. That's still too expensive. I mean, you need to grow really, really quickly to justify that. And given how big they are already, I think that's too expensive. QLYS, this is one I am dollar cost averaging. I've been doing that for probably quite a while now. Beat earnings and revenue. They were up on that news. Disney, one that I don't think I ever would buy, but I watch it because it's popular and whatnot. Beat earnings and revenue. They were actually up very significantly on that news. CDW, this is one that I do have on a watch list. I have owned it in the past, but I did sell it because I thought there was better options. They beat earnings and revenue. They were actually up quite significantly on that news. Owens Corning, OC, beat earnings and revenue. They were actually down on that news. IIPR, this is one I sold off recently. I actually held it for probably 2 or 3 years. And the reason for that is I don't think their dividend is sustainable. I mean, dividend yield of about 14. A lot of people see that and say, hey, that's crazy. Their FFO yield it's covering it right now. But I mean, they've had a handful of tenants default. I don't actually know how many it is off the top of my head, and it's just not a good sign, right? I mean, after the first time it happened, I thought to myself, okay, yeah, it's not the end of the world, but now I think we've seen a second or even a third one do it, and that's at the point to where, okay, this is just too risky. In my opinion, it's just not worth the risk, even though technically they might be able to maintain that dividend, but I mean, even if you're getting that dividend, I mean, you're still down very significantly. I mean, I bought this stock around, I think, the mid-60s, so I wasn't down that much, but still, I think there's better opportunities. Paycom Software beat earnings and revenue. They're on a watch list for me, but I just think they're too expensive where they're at right now. Primerica, obviously, this is a top 10 or 15 holding for me, and I am still buying it. They beat earnings and revenue. They were up slightly on that news. Skyworks, this is one that I am actually not buying right now. I did sell it off. I used to have a good size position. I just think there's better options. I did own them in the past, though. WTS, this is one that I have on a watch list. I probably would buy if it got cheap enough. They're just way too expensive. They released pretty good earnings. They were up quite nicely on that news. IBP, Installed Building Products, also beat earnings and revenue. They're actually down on that news. Coinbase missed earnings and revenue. They were actually basically flat on the week. Looks like they were down slightly. And then VCTR, this is another one I'm dollar cost averaging. They missed earnings and revenue. However, looks like they're only down slightly on that news. I'm still buying. I'm not overly concerned. I mean, they have a 8.5% free cash flow yield, a 7.3 earnings yield. I really like that. I still think they have room to grow, so I'm definitely still buying them. So anyway, that was what I wanted to talk about this week. That was this past week. We do still have, I think, a couple weeks of notable earnings. I think it's NVIDIA, and I think it's 2 weeks from now. So that's kind of the last notable earnings week. And then again, I think within 6-7 weeks, we're going to have that second quarter GDP number will be coming out in July. So that very well could drive markets, because if that number is negative, that means we're officially in recession, which is obviously not good news. So anyway, that's what I wanted to talk about this week or today. Like I said, if you liked the video, please like, subscribe, comment, and stay tuned for more.